everyone. Welcome back. I have today my friend Mike Brancatelli from the Mikadelic Podcast. Hey, Mike. Thanks for being with us.
Hey, Beth. Thanks for having me.
So if you don't know Mike, like I mentioned, he hosts his own podcast called Mikadelic, and he is a facilitator of group exercises for men, a psychonaut, a mushroom cultivator, medicine facilitator, and possibly some kind of coach. And I would also like to add a comedian as well, whether you like it or not. So Mike, let's get started. I don't know your full story, and I would love to hear it. You know, how did you get onto this path of starting your podcast, getting into psychedelics, and creating this world that you're in, and this business, and multiple, areas of business? What was your journey? I'm curious.
Where should I begin?
Were you taught to? I always say, were you taught to be a corporate attorney and go to college and get a good job?
Well, no, not really. But my grandmother always wanted to be my grandmother and my parents actually always wanted me to be a lawyer because I would argue with them about why I should be allowed to do things, and they would really be like, "Damn, like we can't keep up with this kid." So they're like, you better be a lawyer. But no, they were very supportive in whatever I wanted to do. I got into acting and writing and film and stuff in college. And I wanted to leave college because I was filming a short film in Los Angeles. Actually, disgraced porn star Ron Jeremy was a character in our short film. He played a mafia gangster who was a bookie, and it was hilarious. He rolled up on the set in an old Toyota Camry with papers all in the back. He was just slovenly, ate all of our food at the craft services table, took stuff, put it in his pocket, it was yeah. But anyway, so I was interested in film and acting and stuff, and then I thought, oh, actors are kind of crazy. And then I was like, well, what about? I always liked comedy. So shortly after I told my parents I don't want to go to college anymore. I just want to stay in LA and do this. They're like, no, don't be stupid. And I was like, well, convince me. And they convinced me, and I finished college. And then after I moved to New York, and I started working at a restaurant and then doing stand-up comedy. And I loved it. It was great. And then I got into podcasting in, I think, late 2013 or early 2014, and I was the co-host of a show called Part of the Problem with Dave Smith. And he's still doing the show. And we would talk politics from a libertarian perspective and comedy. And so we would just look at we'd look at the news and we'd just be like, this is absurd. Let's make fun of it and talk about it. And that was really fun. And so doing comedy, living in New York, doing this podcast, Part of the Problem. And then I went to Coachella in 2012. And it was my first big festival experience, believe it or not. I don't know why I hadn't really been exposed to festivals before that. But it was great. And I just finished reading Steve Jobs' biography where he said LSD was one of the most important things I've ever done in my life. And I was such a huge nerd, Beth, that I would watch Steve Jobs' keynote speeches. I would record them. I would study them. I had this pamphlet called the Presentation Secrets of Steve Jobs, how he spoke and how he conveyed his marketing and stuff. I was obsessed with it. And I thought, okay, well, if he's saying that LSD is one of the most important things he's ever done in his life, then everything else that I've ever been told is completely wrong, because I really respect this guy. And so then I started digging into I found Richard Alpert, who became Ram Dass, and Tim Leary, and Houston Smith, and Andrew Weil, and all these Harvard guys. I'm like, oh, all this stuff that they were telling us in DARE is completely fucking wrong, And so I had this big breakthrough experience at this music festival, and that's when my whole world kind of opened up, and I was like, oh, I'm interested in so many more things. And so that's the beginning of the birth of Mikadelic, and me, venturing out of the country to go drink ayahuasca in Peru and all that kind of stuff.
I love this story. Yeah, I had no idea. I thought you were just a guy working in New York for some internet marketing company. And
I did that too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did that too.
Add that to the list. A lot of us, it seems. No, I love this. And by the way, if you still have this presentation of Steve Jobs' secrets, this is someone like me would be really interested in that.
I'll send it to you. It's phenomenal. Yeah.
Maybe that could be a published book of sorts. I don't know. But I love it. So then what then came about when you launched the Mikadelic Podcast? I know there's a lot of listeners who dream of starting a podcast and putting themselves out there and talking about something pretty edgy like psychedelics. And especially with you at the time, it was probably kind of on the edgier side because it was before they blew up and became, now it's the mainstream media is talking about it. But yeah, what was the original intention behind it? And how did people react back when you first launched it?
Yeah. The original intention was, so I was on this podcast, Part of the Problem, and like I said, libertarian news, political show with comedy in it, and then I was doing stand-up comedy, and so I was always thinking of things to say, and my mind just went to, like, at the same time, I was also, every night I would come home and I would listen to like a Terrence McKenna talk or Alan Watts, or like, I was just like consuming and reading so much about all the stuff that I was interested in. And on the show that I was on, like when I was doing stand up, I would get up on stage and I would have a microphone for usually 5 to 10 minutes because I was very early on in my career at that point. And so that was the only stage time that I got, was like 5-10 minutes, a night, sometimes maybe 20 minutes a night. And then on Part of the Problem, the host, Dave Smith, he would just pretty much talk the whole time. And I was kind of like, the guy that could throw in a couple things here and there. So I was like chomping at the bit. I was like ready to explode because I just had so much that I wanted to share and say. And through my own experimentation with psychedelics while all this stuff was happening, I was just like, wow, like, psychedelics and liberty just go hand in hand. Like, this is what it's all about. It's all about this kind of stuff. And so I just made the decision, like, I kind of took, I definitely got inspiration from Dave, because Dave and I would say really, I guess, cancelable type things or something, like at the time, like we were talking about ending the Federal Reserve and like, the government is corrupt and look at all the corrupt shit they do. So we would just talk about that kind of stuff. So I already was kind of primed to talk and speak out. And I definitely was inspired by him because he was fearless in what he would say. And he would go on like Fox News shows and say this stuff like to people. And I was like, all right, great. So when my first episode of Mikadelic, I think I played a little bit of a Tim Leary record or piece, and then I talked about that. I talked about like freedom and sovereignty and cognitive liberty, consciousness, diversity, novelty, like all these things that we love so much about a psychedelic experience, the freedom that it can provide both inner and outer as we pursue what we want in our lives. And so that was like the main sort of core mission of the show, was to bring the ideas of liberty and psychedelics together.
It's interesting. That's amazing. I find it really interesting how relevant this is today, especially, I literally just an hour ago saw that, who is it? The Fungi Academy was shut down on Instagram.
Oh, no way. They're one of my sponsors.
Uh-oh. They started a new account. It's probably going to be back up. That's usually how it goes. But it just, it's been interesting to watch over the years, and especially the last year and a half, how much censorship has become real and how it goes hand in hand with this growth in the freedom, like so many people are talking about decriminalization, legalization, cognitive freedom, sovereignty. What does it mean to free ourselves from systems that don't work? And I'm curious what your thoughts are about how the future of psychedelics will play a part in that direction. Because I know, there's people that won't even spell the word psychedelic out on social media. They have to use all the code words, which I don't bother doing. I figure, hey, I'm not talking about anything illegal. Well, maybe a little. But yeah, what is your view on how this will play a part in the future? That's
a really good question. I don't know. I oscillate between many different perspectives. Like in one part, I see the whole landscape, and I'm like, great, everybody's doing their part. We have psychedelic coaches and leadership programs. We have psychedelics making their way into like the corporate space and people wanting to know about these things. We have luxurious retreat centers like Rhythmia in Costa Rica that are catered to more of, that. We have Michael Pollan's books. We have these, the buttoned up kind of like, hey, we're not too freaky and weird. We're just like trying to help people approach. And then I see like, the underground stuff and the festival scene and the music and the culture and like the social media stuff. And so I see like the whole landscape of it. It looks good, when you look at it all. And then there's like a little bit of sort of depression I get like sometimes, or despair, when I just don't see it moving along fast enough. It's like, okay, we're moving along. But then I think of people like Rick Doblin. I'm like, Jesus, he's been in the fight for so long. He's just, maybe he's got the right attitude, like committed to that long-term view, But I can't help but think that the more people that have exposure to psychedelics, the more that they're going to have these direct experiences that are going to be undeniable. So maybe we'll have some kind of massive revolution in what it, like almost like a religious like reformation or something like that, because the way I look at it is that the more people that know about this stuff and then have access to it, then you really get an understanding of what it is. Because if you don't know what it is, you just go based on like what I was saying before, like what I heard, DARE program, you're going to get holes in your brain, acid's going to stick in your spine and you're going to have flashbacks and all these kinds of things. So really, my hope for the future is there's just more education and like real education, and that there's more acceptance and tolerance of a diversity of different ways of doing things, and I think that they all kind of dance together in harmony,
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that perspective. That's a great way of putting it, because we're seeing everything, every day there's, I keep saying every day there's more niches coming up in this whole psychedelic coaching or psychedelic, facilitation or underground therapy. There was something the recent one I've heard of was like psychedelics and parenting. And then there's like psychedelics with children, and then sexual, tantra and sacred sexuality and psychedelics. And then I have a few clients doing kind of interesting niche things like microdosing and weight loss. It's so the potential of everything is there. And I know you mentioned that there's so many different avenues and, different ways of catering towards different people. And accessibility is a big issue, which I think is a lot to do with the whole system, the setup of the system. And we'll see what happens with that. I know there's more and more conversations around accessibility and what's going to happen, and, corporate and entities getting involved. But, I do believe that there is, like, I'm very much like you. I'm like, this needs to happen yesterday because it's so intertwined into everything changing so fast in the world as well. And I'm hoping that the Rhythmias of the world, which I know, at first I was one of those people that was like, a high-end retreat center, who's going to go there? But again, it's like there's certain people that will not go out to a tombo in the jungle with a tarantula like 3 feet from their door. It's not really made for everybody. Yeah. So whatever works and whatever helps get people the healing and transformation they want, that's my belief. Mm-hmm. Of course, there's a very dark side to all this as well, but we can get into that in a little bit. Yeah. But I have a question for you. What came up when you mentioned all these different groups of people who are looking for, the healing, and then the Michael Pollan books. You do work with men. This is one area I've been curious about. I've had a client in the past who talked about doing men's work and mixing it with psychedelics. And, there's a lot of men who are very called to this path. But me, not being a man, I don't know that much about what really goes on. I do have some friends who've led men's retreats and men's groups. But I'm curious if we could talk a little bit about this, because I do believe this on some level is where our entire world needs the healing the most. Because of course, it's a male dominated society we live in. Men dominate, most world, at least here in the US, our government, but most governments, most CEOs are men. Like, I could go on. And I've personally made it a mission of mine on this podcast to feature more women, because even the psychedelics industry has been very male dominated, and it's, it's okay. There's nothing wrong with it, but there's a lot of deep wounds in the masculine. And I'm curious what your position is on all this. Like, what is the men's work that you've done or do? And I would love to hear a little bit more about this.
Sure. Yeah. So during the pandemic, one of my friends who ran a company called Good Cinema, where he would host documentaries and then do panels afterwards to discuss the documentary that was just watched, couldn't do it anymore, and because of all the shutdowns and everything. And I think he did, his last one was like a virtual one, and Gabor Mate was on and a couple other people were on. It was really good. And, but it just didn't have the same feel. And he's like, so he was really struggling. Actually, shout out to East Forest for providing, I just saw him in Denver, and he provided those, I think like Sunday ceremonies on his live streaming on his YouTube.
Yeah.
So my friend had the idea, spurred on by one of those sessions, those ceremonies, to start a group to connect with other men. And this was like sort of the first time that I knew someone in my personal life that was doing something like that. And he had invited me to it, and I said no, because my original thought was that I saw a lot of men's groups or something where it was just like, I don't know, swinging kettlebell around, screaming, like with your shirt off. Like I didn't really understand what it was. I just didn't really get it. And but then anyway, I joined. I came to a thing, and it was cool. It was cool to be in a space of all men and listen to older men and younger men talk about things, and we all kind of like could relate to it. And I didn't know what it was, but it felt good. It kind of felt like a lot of the times in my life, like when I was doing comedy, like a lot of the times I'd be hanging out with like a bunch of guys, and it'd be like bonding with each other, And so I guess somewhere along the way, a lot of us lose that sort of community and that bonding experience that can be provided maybe when you were younger and it was in sports, things like that. But a lot of it is like very surface level too. With the comedians, we were all like roasting each other and stuff. And in sports, it's, very surface level type stuff. But this was getting together with a group of men to be intentional about what's going on inside of us and sharing the truth of our experiences and our feelings and like tapping into that. And that was like a new thing for me. And so that evolved, and we had the idea to create more experiences that would help for us to feel that we could really truly express ourselves and be seen and be heard in ways that maybe we can't get anywhere else. You go to a coach or a therapist, it's one-on-one, you talk to your partner or something like that, you're getting this sort of female perspective. And also a lot of it, which my buddy Max said, he said, for so long, men have leaned on women for that emotional support, And I've heard that from a lot of men, like, oh, I can't talk to my guy friends about this, but I can talk to her about it, or I could talk to my partner about it. And he's like, it's not their responsibility to take care of all of our emotional needs. That like there's common tropes in masculinity where you find that a man and woman get together and the woman starts mothering the man because that's, and it's like, that's not her job. That forms a toxic kind of relationship there, So really it was about finding the truth of what it means to be in this body and, defined as a man. What does that mean? So the exploration of that. And then we were creating all these experiences with ecstatic dance and cacao ceremonies and team bonding activities like silent night hikes and scavenger hunt type things. And then sharing in a circle and chanting and, doing some primal stuff and wrestling and things like that. And just, so a lot of men have felt that like maybe they find themselves in a job or in a relationship or both, that they can't truly express themselves. They don't know who they truly are, what they truly want. They have been told that maybe they're bad or they're too hyper or they're, they don't really know how to feel what they're feeling in their body and then convey that in a healthy way outside to other people around them. So I was learning that too. And then, we started creating these experiences, and we had our first retreat at the end of August. We filled it up, 22 men, and it was phenomenal. It was absolutely phenomenal. We did so many things, and we opened it up to be a participatory experience as well. So we invited anyone that had any talents or skills or anything to share to come and bring that. And we really wanted to. A lot of male circles are kind of top down, hierarchical, and in that way. And we wanted to really kind of open it up to more of encompass everybody as being a leader. And so that's sort of the path that I'm on right now, is creating experiences and then also attending experiences. I'm going to 2 actually in October, and learning and then trying to give back, learning and give back kind of as we're doing it. Because I believe there's a big value, I think, from being with your peers, and sort of learning together and going through the process together. So that's sort of what it's all about. I could probably talk more about it, but that's what I got. Yeah.
No, it's beautiful. I'm like, ooh, night hiking. That's like, I would love to do that. But no, I love hearing about this. It's because I'm very much like you. I used to think like, oh, a men's retreat, are they just like chopping wood the whole time or swinging kettlebells and eating a lot of meat? I mean, yes. Okay. Let's be real here. This is not what goes on. And, that's so stereotypical of me, but this is where, we need to kind of reprogram. Like, what do we think of men and women and the relationship within ourselves? And that space, it's been so repressed for so long that men can be in their emotions and be vulnerable and still be masculine and still be strong and still be leaders and be okay in their vulnerability and not dumping it all on their partners or bottling it all in and then letting out all the rage in some other way, which my brother, who doesn't watch this podcast ever, is a good example of what I'm talking about. But yeah. I'm curious, because I've personally been in circles doing, women's circles with medicine, and been in actually like very interactive healing circles with medicine with a somatic therapist, where women together in a group would take, whatever it was, mushrooms, sometimes actually even very light ayahuasca, and do exercises like this with each other. But I've never heard of this being done with men. I've heard of people talking about potentially doing this, but I have yet to see one go on. I know they probably exist, but I'm curious, have you heard of people doing men's circles with, psychedelic-assisted, exploration to, in circles, and not just that one-on-one, like, okay, working with a therapist or working with a facilitator? I'm curious.
Yeah, definitely. So we're doing it, and I think that it's really, really important to do. And the way in which we're doing it is, again, in more of a sort of participatory way as well, where everybody can bring a little bit of what they learned. Like, I learned stuff being in Peru. Somebody else I know, learned things from being in India, and they have a different background. people learn things from all over. So we're trying to be as open as possible to collaborate and not say like, this is the way it's supposed to be done, but to kind of come together and say, how can we really create an experience here that is going to be really healing for everybody, that's going to be really safe, that's going to really, everybody's going to have like their own process to go through. So for example, at our retreat, we had a outdoor ceremony under a full moon out in Western Colorado. It was absolutely gorgeous. And we then opened up the ceremony after a few hours for participatory music to be played. So anybody who had an instrument could then play music, and people that did that. And then we opened it up even more to like dancing and things like that as the night progressed. And it was really healing. Like we created situations for people who, we had like what we called like the Zendo area, right? Like the sort of comfy, safe space for anybody that didn't really want to be a part of that. We had a fire pit for, dancing and drumming around the fire. We had, so we tried to create almost like a festival kind of experience infused into sort of like a traditional, almost ayahuasca ceremony setting. It was phenomenal. Yeah. And I think that it's really important for men to have these experiences and with each other, because sometimes when you're with a co-ed group, for example, right? Like a lot of things that happen with men, particularly if like it's like a single man or something, right? He's like, oh, maybe, like I'm maybe interested in her over there or that over, and you're not really thinking about that in this kind of situation. That's just something that comes up always, and so it's really kind of honed in, and I love the way that we're doing it, because we're really kind of teaching ourselves and each other to learn from each other and to not try and take over, the way that it's being done.
No, this is amazing. And that sounds really expansive to involve everybody in the process and not have there be like the one leader or the one guru or the shaman that's in charge, and
Right.
make it an interactive growth and healing experience. I'm curious. There's actually a few things that came up, because this has come up for me with a training program I was recently in, where we had a mushroom ceremony and a facilitator, but then it was a little bit somewhat like co-active, but there were some things that came up around like what was appropriate in the space, and then like, a man versus a woman, and like if someone needed help and consent, and, trying to get that balance right. And I'm curious, in these all male spaces or all female spaces, it's like there is a lot more of the safety that happens where I'm curious, does this allow more of the, the expansion and the healing to take place? Like, do you find that men have felt more comfortable, like, let's say, crying at the top of their lungs for 45 minutes straight, or, having a moment during the ceremony and not having to hide or be tough? Like, do you think this makes a difference, being in a group of men?
Yeah, I think it does. I think it makes a difference because I like both ways, by the way. It's like this is all more new to me now. Most of the ways that I've done it has been, co-ed. But I do think that there's something there. There's some kind of like brotherhood type thing that emerges where, we had a mat in the center of the circle called the support mat. So if somebody was needing support, that they would go over to that mat. If they couldn't make it over, they would shine a little red light. We'd come and we'd get them. And the idea was to, send that brother, love from that place of the mat, and once the first person did it, it really opened it up for a lot of other people to go there and just receive that sort of, masculine love, that connection, that brotherly bonding connection. And so I think that there's something there to that when you can allow yourself to be vulnerable enough to be seen by other men, then that's when the shifts start to occur, you know?
That's an amazing practice. I have actually not heard of something like that. So this is really helpful just to hear the way different circles are held and different ideas. You know, the Zendo idea I know and love. I've actually been to the Zendo training, and I've been in circles where it's, you know, where it's said like, okay, if things get too intense, there's this other place. But I have never heard of that like having someone in the center where you can send them, you know, the good support and the energy, and also just being seen and not being embarrassed around. Like, I personally had a very intense experience the other weekend. You know, it was completely out of the blue, as it always is. And I remember feeling to myself, wow, I was crying at like the top of my lungs. And I was like, I could probably cry for like 2 hours straight if I wasn't in this circle of people. Because I then, you know, after a while I was like, well, this is getting a little much. There's other people. I should probably quiet it down. And, you know, but then again, it's like the part of it is the healing. You know, this is it. It's like the purge. It was like this huge collective purge that was coming out of me. So I love these different practices I keep hearing about, the way people hold space. And I'm curious, you know, what the future holds for men's work out there. It's, you know, to me, the world I live in, the coaching and healing world that I've been in for many years, I hear about more and more of it every day. But I'm wondering if like the common man out there in the world, like even knows that this exists and or even understands like what the benefits to doing men's work is. It's like, you know, you turned down the invite to join a men's circle. I actually remember many years ago, the first time I was invited to like a women's gathering, I was like, ugh, like that sounded horrible to me. I was like, wait, why? To be around a whole bunch of catty women? No way. And then I realized like, okay, this is a whole different paradigm. Yeah. But yeah, do you feel like there is a growth in interest, and like, where is this coming from? Is it men are just like realizing, okay, I don't like the way I've been living, or I'm unhappy, or relationship issues? Like, what do you think the driver is, and how do we get more men to do this work?
Yeah, a lot of great questions there. So I guess I would say that there definitely seems to be this feeling in the collective, in men, that's like, I don't want to be doing, like, what life am I living? You know, like I was told that I'm supposed to do all these things, and then I have to be like a provider and, you know, all this stuff. And it's like, where's my like support team? You know, because I think that we've been told a lot that it's like, it's cutthroat out there. You got to hustle and grind, like kill the competition, right? I mean, we still see this going on. And that's sort of like in the general consensus mainstream world, like that's how things operate. That's like, I remember my first job, it was like very much like that, like boiler room type thing. And so there's this like notion that there's all these like lone wolves out there just trying to do it all themselves and get to the top of the pack. And in my experience, it's the world opens up so much more when you can be part of a pack, you know, because what do they say on Game of Thrones? The lone wolf dies, but the pack survives, you know? And so the lone wolf kind of mentality for men just isn't working anymore, you know? And it's like they're the women in their life like don't know what to do with them, because they're just like, what's wrong with this guy? You know, I don't get it. Like, there's so many things that men are trying to express themselves, but they don't know how. All the stuff that they get from the sort of mainstream culture is kind of trash, right? And so they don't know that there's other ways. For example, when I was working in like my first job, I remember it was like, okay, cool, like go to work, go to the bar after, maybe try and meet a lady, and I don't know, and then I guess go home and like order pizza and watch TV. And so that you know, like the 90s was like so prominent in like showcasing that stereotypical couch potato man. Al Bundy or Homer Simpson, the guy that's just like, oh, my husband, like he's such an idiot and all this stuff. So there's this sort of like, well, what are we supposed to be? Because we're not, the occupation of being like a hunter isn't really out there anymore, but that is traditionally what men used to do a lot of, is like get together with other men and hunt and get together to train in case to protect the tribe if there was like a threat around or something, and in the Iroquois tradition, they had the council of grandmother elders, the wise elders, who they would then consult with, sort of the pack of the warrior men. But yeah, we've really lost that sense of like brotherliness and camaraderie, and the tending to the land, being a steward of your land and your environment. So there's a healthy, respectful, and wise element of masculinity that I just don't see being expressed, because that isn't really available to a lot of men. They default to, well, I guess I'll just watch sports, or I guess I'll just drink beer, or I don't know, I'm just doing whatever I see is out there, or what my cohorts are doing. So there's another way of doing things, and it's uncomfortable, but it's worth it. It's worth pursuing, because there's a lot of growth, and your world opens up a lot bigger too. It's a great thing.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, what is it? I think it's one of the Hopi prophecies or some sort, where they say the day of the lone wolf is over. Which, in my world, that's what I am trying to live, where it's a world of collaboration and group efforts and group learning and group growth. Like you grow, I grow, we all grow together. I say this to my clients all the time. That's the whole point of it, is like doing this work together versus solo on your own. I always say I don't even believe in competition anymore. And I wonder what our world would be like if this is the way everybody could see it, including like CEOs of companies and our world leaders. And, even, my recent summit, part of it was to talk about like how do we do conscious business? What does it really mean? What is this idea of, doing business different, and distribution of wealth and resources, and again, this ties into so much that's not working for most people in our world, and I think it's really ingrained into the system. So my prayer is that this men's work that you're doing, especially bringing in the medicine into the men's work, that it really grows big, because I do believe the more leaders we can reach who are doing this kind of work, the better we have, the systems, the better we have leaders in the world, who are actually out there doing good and coming from this place of collaboration and together versus, like the cutthroat world. I was very much like you. I went to college and got my first job in New York City. And it was like, it was really rough. Like New York, corporate jobs, like the constant anxiety, and then being like, wait, I don't even vibe with this whole culture of like people just being mean to each other because everybody's fighting for a promotion because no one could survive. It's like this very like survival of the fittest, which I was like, I cannot do this forever. I'll never make it. It's just not in me to like claw away at other people and backstab and be conniving in order to like grow, which of course is still existing out there, but not so much in the world I'm in, at least I would like to think.
Yeah, we're starting to plant these seeds and tend to these gardens, and watching them grow. And it's a beautiful thing. One of the things that I'm really adamant about in this work is that it doesn't just stop with the experiences that we have. That we really keep the community together, and so and support the community around us, right? So like giving back and volunteering and helping, just helping. I think it's we could come up with all these fancy words, but it's really just helping, just being kind and helping. And I think one of the things that's been really important for me has been to just keep reinforcing that. And saying things like, we have a WhatsApp group for everybody that attended our retreat in August, and it's still going on to this day. It's still active. And I say like in there, I was like, anybody that needs anything, if you need help moving, if you want to borrow a coffee pot or whatever it is. If you need something, there's times where we lived in where it wasn't uncommon to go to your neighbor and ask for more sugar or something. A lot of people don't know who their neighbors are. It's just the way that that system has been built. So we're trying to build a new system where it's okay to ask for help. It's okay to say, can I borrow something from you? Can you help me with something? Do you have 20 minutes? I just need to get something off my mind and I need an ear, and that's okay for men to do or for all of us to do, really, because I think really, we grow in community and we thrive in community. So we're trying to figure out a way to bring that community, that real community, back into a world that doesn't seem like it's very much interested in promoting that in the mainstream, but we are in our circles, and it's beautiful when you see that growing and you see it in action.
Yeah, and you mentioned a lot of really important points here. Community has come up so much the last couple of years, with the isolation and a lot of people's job situations changing, people working from home a lot more, people questioning where do I want to live and moving around, and then all of a sudden, hey, there's your community. This happened to me. My community is everywhere now. They're all over the place. So while I feel that sense of community, there's also a lack of community because it's, things just got blown up. And then you throw in differences of opinions and different world beliefs, and that throws a wrench in. So, and then you also mentioned something else very important, that it's not just about the experience. And this is where those two come hand in hand. So many people have discussed this idea of integration. What is real integration beyond just the one mushroom ceremony together? It is having the support. It is being able to reach out. It is having this community. And that's where the real growth and healing and expansion comes from, this medicine. It's not just the few hours that you're in the space. It's so much better off when you have this continued community, or at least some sort of support to process it with. Mm-hmm. And I love that you brought that up, because this has been so important of a discussion. And what I've seen with myself I was very much the lone wolf when I came to the group psychedelic world. I literally knew no one. I didn't, there was no one to talk to. It was kind of you go and then you leave, and that was that. And I was like, wait, this is really hard.
Yeah.
And I was actually one of the first people in that community that spoke up. And I was like, do you have someone I can talk to about this? Because I don't really know that many people who've had this experience. This is a long time ago. Now things are a little bit different. But I'm curious, what do you feel like the direction of what you're up to with your podcast and with this men's work and with your comedy, maybe coaching? What is the direction you want to see things heading in on your end? What are you up to when it comes to these groups or integration or building community? What's on your plate for the future?
Yeah, I just want to keep the beach ball in the air at the festival, right? You're at a concert, there's a beach ball going around, you hit it, and it's the point isn't to just slam it down as hard as you can or hit it as far as you can. It's just keep it going. Just keep it going. So I am always just thinking about, how can I keep everything that I do, how can I keep us all connected in doing it and real and transparent? Because I often find that in a lot of groups, people, in a lot of this work, let's just say, people will go to a depth, but there's a deeper depth. There's a deeper them. There's things that are going on there that they're not really revealing. And I'm looking for a way to really let that out and really come together in an epic ecstasis communitas type of way, as Jamie Wheel would say, really converge into, if I can somehow infuse a level of a festival type environment into all of the things that I do, and then keep us and everybody who's participating in that together and supporting each other. Because I think so much of support comes from things favors, leaning on somebody. And so I think that is a good way to stay connected. In terms, like, specifically, I have no idea. So I'm constantly always trying to figure it out as I go along. And sometimes, usually most of the time, what happens is I have no idea for like a week or 2 weeks, and then within 10 minutes, everything comes together. And then I'll know kind of what the next plan is to go forward. But yeah, all these realms are definitely converging. Yeah, a lot of it also is like fun. Like, I want people to have fun. I think when people are in a medicine space and are having those experiences, and you're able to laugh and you're able to cry, like if you're able to really fully embody every single element of the human experience and emotion and everything, that's a good time. That's living. And so I want to provide spaces where people can fully express themselves to live to the fullest, and then to stay connected in that life of living to the fullest.
Yeah, fun is something a lot of people leave out. I'm glad you brought that up. It was funny. Yesterday, I was just saying to someone invited me to a new moon ceremony, and I was like, look, I cannot go to another serious ceremony. I just want to hang out and talk, like, because I love the spiritual work. I love the ritual work. I've been doing it for so many years, it's like one thing after another. But sometimes we just need like the lightness and the sweetness and the connection, and not so much like the heaviness of the healing and the spirituality. It's like, okay, even with the medicine circles, it's like, yes, there's a lot of the dark places and the heaviness, but there's all the range of emotions. So I love that that's a commitment of yours, because I do believe, especially with the world that we're in today, it's like I've personally taken a step back, or step off, shall I say, of psychedelics so much the last year and a half, because I felt like, okay, well, my everyday world feels like a gigantic ayahuasca ceremony. I'm not sure if I need actual ayahuasca to be pounded. I would like ayahuasca to, kind of take me through the ups and downs, sure, but I don't know if I need to spend like 3.5 hours straight in like the darkness of purge, because that's like my everyday existence and the reality that we live in right now. So there's definitely a place for fun. And then I also love what you mentioned about favors. And I actually just spoke to my clients about this recently, about how I built this business from a place of pure generosity. And how I've seen so many people build their businesses and take their lives in these directions from this place of giving. Meaning like, hey, what can I do to connect you or help out or support you? And just come from this place of zero expectations. Just from like the purity of your heart. Like, okay, I know what it's like to be in that place, and I would want someone to help me. What would happen if I just helped without any expectations of getting anything back? And what that's done for me, and what I've seen this happen with a lot of my clients. It's something really big I teach in my programs as well, is come from this place of pure service, like just showing up and not knowing where it can take you. And what it does is it really does open up these kind of synchronistic doors where like all of a sudden you're like, oh, okay, an opportunity lands in your lap, or someone wants to collaborate, or someone wants to help you all of a sudden, or like offers you help without you even asking. So this, this paradigm of just showing up from this place of service, again, is so new. It's not what we've been taught. We've been taught the complete polar opposite. And what I've seen is this is how a lot of people have ended up building, really successful businesses and networks and communities. This is kind of what you were talking about? And
yeah, totally. I mean, like, be the change you want to see in the world. Also invest in the projects you want to see in the world. Like, I think that's a great thing too, because there's, I think the old model would be like, oh, there's so many people. Oh no, Beth has a podcast now. Damn it. One more psychedelic podcast for me to compete with. But no, it's great. Like, you get to express yourself and it's your thing. And like, it's like we all have a unique color and flavor and zest and everything that makes up you and everybody else that does what they do and they're passionate about. So, I think that if we just help fuel each other's projects, right? Like, use the the currency and the modality that is within this system that we find ourselves operating in, this, kind of crony corporate government, overreach, crazy system, to fuel and fund the things that we love and support the things that we love. Like, I always look at it like, wow, there's so many things that I want to do, but I can't because I just can't do them all. But I see somebody else doing it and I'm like, oh, dope. Like, my friend David is doing this awesome retreat. I'm going to go to his retreat. Like, he came to mine. I'm going to go to his. Like, I'm just going to keep doing and fueling the things that I love and that I want to see in the world. And that's, I think, the way that we make things grow. It's like, if you saw trash in the park, maybe you'll pick it up, right? You're not going to spend the whole day, maybe, like you got somewhere to be. But if you could pick up a little bit, on your way to wherever you're going, you're doing your part, And so I think that's, I think that's a good thing to do.
I wish everybody would do that, by the way. Sometimes I feel like, am I the only person that picks up trash on the trails?
Yeah, I do too. Yeah. Unfortunately, there is trash there, but pick up what you can, do what you can. Tend to the part of the garden that you can touch.
Exactly. Yeah. It's funny you bring up the podcast. By the way, someone actually really, someone has come at me recently with some hate over my podcast, and it was really funny because it was
cool, you've made it then.
Yes, I know. I was like, but it was interesting. I don't really know much about him, but the fascinating part is he had asked if he could be a guest on my podcast, and I was like, but I know nothing about him, and I think from what I understand he like pours medicine and that's it. And I was like, well, I'm a little particular when it comes to featuring people who pour medicine who I literally don't know anything about. I'm giving them a platform. And a few months later, and I didn't say that, I just said, look, not right now. A few months later, he posted something very passive aggressive about me in my own Facebook group, which I found to be really funny.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
well.
when you get the haters, that's how you made it.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I should do a whole episode on haters because I get haters every year. I do a summit. This year I've only gotten about 2, which is not so bad out of, thousands. And it's definitely more supporters than haters. It's more people saying, wow, I'm so glad you have this one, it's like you said, your own tiny little flavor. And even, I collaborate with friends of mine who do the exact same thing I do. I collaborate with them all the time. And it's like, we're all slightly different. And that's the beauty of it. You get to choose, okay, I vibe with this podcast, but not the other. Great. It's like, I use this example all the time of like Marianne Williamson and Gabby Bernstein. They're both like huge famous people that teach the exact same thing. And they're completely different. And they're friends. And they collaborate sometimes too. And it's like, it doesn't really matter. This is about this whole new paradigm of like, actually coming from a bigger place than us and our egos. Like I always come from like, what is my ultimate goal? And my ultimate mission on this planet is to like get people all, the support and healing that they can get. And my personal mission is like, make all the healers and the people doing good work out there, like get them bigger so they can reach more people and help more people. I don't care how it's done, and very often someone will come to me and ask about my programs or coaching. And if I'm either not the right fit for them or they're not the right fit for my programs, I'll actually give them like, here's a list of other people I recommend, that do the exact same thing. Yeah. So completely new paradigm. So Mike, okay, parting words, tell us, what's upcoming for you if you know of anything. And I'm curious if anything's, any like secret workings underground or anything happening you want to share? Yeah,
I mean, definitely get in touch with me. All things regarding mushrooms or psychedelics, specifically mushrooms. I mean, I grow them. I work with them. They're my favorite. And he won
the mushroom cup. What is it? The psilocybin cup?
Yeah. So my teacher, Travis, he entered the strain that we have been growing into the psilocybin cup. And they came in first and second place. So that's pretty cool.
Oh my God. Yeah. Amazing.
So yeah, they measure for like potency. I believe that he was actually instructed by Hamilton Morris about how to make the PE strain, penis envy strain, more potent, more have more bioavailability for the good stuff, the psilocin in there and psilocybin. But yeah, so I do that, and men's groups in Denver, Boulder, Colorado, and I've got some plans for some fun stuff with Mikadelic. I just moved into a new studio space, and I might have some fun, interesting things. I would like the show to be like a psychedelic David Letterman or whatever, like a psychedelic Jimmy Fallon type show that's like an hour and a half long, and so that's kind of like my idea, is to make it more of a fun talk showy, fun hangout vibe. So that's what I would like to do with this new space that I'm in. But yeah, I don't know. Just follow me, Mikadelic_podcast, and stay tuned and reach out. And yeah, I'm always open to collaborating and talking about anything.
Mike, that sounds like so much fun. And I think our world could really use more of that. I remember loving Letterman back in the days when he was really funny and it was a great show. Whatever happened, I don't know. But that would be an amazing direction to take this in, because we could use some more lightness and sweetness. This isn't, yes, the healing is a huge part of it, but there's that is part of the healing, is bringing joy and love and sweetness to this process. I had a former client who said healing doesn't have to suck.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it doesn't, like transformation is, for me, yes, there's challenging times, but most of the time it's an enjoyable process if you choose to see it that way.
Well, yeah. Well, I'll say real quick about that. The way that our culture is, the way that we get into things, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you think about all the fads, diet fads, or, exercise fads, or like 7-minute abs, or the home thing, or whatever it is, like that we do the same thing with spirituality and growth and medicine work. And it just, like Cho Young Trungpa says, anything can be converted to the ego's use. And we live in an egoic society and an egoic culture. So everything kind of, morphs into that stuff. But, one of the things that I've always starting out and doing comedy and podcasting and then being at the Temple of the Way of Light in Peru, I remember always hearing the healers, the shamans, laughing with like just the truest, most guttural laughs, after ceremony and the moon's out and I'm like walking back to my tambo and I just hear them cackling and laughing. They know it's all, this is all a joke. It's like, what are we doing here? It's easy. Respect nature, love each other, tell the truth, be kind, and don't take more than you need. And so they're probably laughing at, oh my God, did you see the demons coming out of that person's head? Or whatever. But it's, I love infusing laughter and humor in everything I do. And, sometimes it's necessary. And I would say we live in a time right now where there's a lot of comedy, but a lot of people are like serious. Like I look out like what things are going on in the world. I'm like, are they really doing that? That's crazy. So we need to kind of come back to more of a lighthearted, loving, heart-centered, camaraderie here.
The cosmic joke. Yes, I agree with you completely. Now is definitely the time for more laughter and comedy, because the news and otherwise is I can't, sometimes I don't know what to make out of it. I'm like, is this funny or is it just really depressing? But it's both, and that's what I'm like, okay, this is all a big joke anyway. So Mike, it was such an honor to have you here. It's always so fun to talk to you. Thank you so much. And we will have all your links in the show notes. Everybody give him a follow, post great content, and please listen to his podcast, Mikadelic.
Listen to the episode that you were on.
Oh, yes. I was on one, I don't know, a while ago, too. Yeah.
Yeah, like 170 or something like that. Yeah.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks, Beth.